My husband slammed the divorce papers onto the kitchen table and laughed. "You're walking away with nothing, Mara," Gideon sneered. His mother, Evelyn, stood beside him with a smug smile. They believed they had won. Gideon thought our small joint bank account was all I owned. For years they treated me like I was helpless and completely dependent on him. But they had no idea what my late grandfather Arthur had left me. When the judge finally opened the trust and announced the true amount, $28.7 million, Gideon's smile disappeared. Evelyn was so shocked that she nearly collapsed in the courtroom. "My name is Mara. For years I believed patience and loyalty could save my marriage. But Gideon and Evelyn saw my kindness as weakness. Evelyn constantly reminded me that I had brought nothing valuable into their family. She ignored everything I did for the home and treated me like a burden. Then one morning everything changed. I walked into the kitchen and saw Gideon leaning against the counter with a smug grin. Evelyn stood beside him, arms crossed. Gideon threw a thick envelope onto the table. "Sign these, Mara. I'm filing for divorce. I already emptied the joint accounts and transferred the car titles into my name. You're leaving with your clothes and nothing else." Evelyn laughed. "Think of it as a favor, dear. You were never meant to stay here forever." I stared at the papers. They expected me to cry. They expected me to beg. Instead, I felt completely calm. They thought they had destroyed me. They had no idea what was coming. My thoughts went to my grandfather, Arthur, the only person who had always believed in me. Arthur lived a simple life. He drove an old truck, dressed modestly, and rarely spoke about money. But behind that quiet personality was a brilliant investor who had built a fortune in secret. 6 months before his death, he called me to his home. He placed a sealed leather folder on the desk and looked directly at me. "People show their true character when they think you have nothing," he told me. Then he gave me one strict instruction: keep the inheritance completely secret until the law required it to be revealed. 2 weeks after his death, his estate lawyer contacted me. Inside that quiet office, the sealed documents were opened. I could barely believe what I saw. Arthur had left me commercial properties, private company holdings, and government bonds worth $28.7 million. Everything was protected inside a private trust in my name. As I looked at Gideon's divorce demands, I made my decision. I wouldn't fight him. I wouldn't beg for his money. I would let him believe he had won. Over the next 2 weeks, Gideon became even more arrogant. He told his friends and business partners that he was finally getting rid of his dead weight. He spent money freely, convinced he would soon control everything. His lawyer kept sending demands. Gideon wanted the house, both cars, the furniture, and nearly every shared asset. He even demanded that I permanently give up any right to spousal support or future claims against his income. Evelyn came to the house to supervise the settlement. She watched smugly as I packed my clothes into a few small suitcases. "You should start looking for a cheap apartment," she said. "Something you can actually afford." I said nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't reveal my secret. With a calm hand, I signed the preliminary papers giving up my claims to Gideon's accounts and heavily mortgaged assets. They thought I was signing away my future. They had no idea I was already worth $28.70 million. Gideon took the signed papers with a proud smile. He truly believed he had beaten me. He had no idea he had just destroyed his own future. The morning of the final divorce hearing arrived under a cold gray sky. Courtroom 4 was quiet as Gideon walked in with his lawyer, Richard Barnes. Gideon wore an expensive new suit and carried himself like a man who had already won. Evelyn sat in the front row, smiling proudly. I entered alone, wearing a simple black dress. In my hand was a sealed folder containing the financial documents prepared by my grandfather Arthur's estate lawyers. I sat quietly at the respondents' table. Gideon looked at me and whispered with a smug grin, "Ready to start your new life with nothing, Mara?" I said nothing. A few moments later, Judge Robert Thornton entered and called our case. Richard Barnes quickly presented the divorce agreement. He described me as financially dependent and asked the judge to approve the settlement immediately. Judge Thornton listened carefully. Then he picked up the sealed financial disclosure that Arthur's lawyers had submitted that morning. He broke the seal. The courtroom became completely silent. The judge slowly read through the documents. His expression changed. Finally, he looked directly at Gideon and his lawyer. "Mr. Barnes, are you aware of what your client is giving up?" Barnes looked confused. The judge continued. According to the certified estate records, Mrs. Vance is the sole beneficiary of a private trust containing commercial property, company shares and government bonds worth exactly $28,740,000. Barnes froze. His pen slipped from his hand and hit the table. Gideon's confident smile disappeared instantly. "What?" he stammered. "That can't be true. Arthur was just a mechanic." Behind him, Evelyn gasped. When she realized what they had just given up, she became overwhelmed and collapsed into the aisle. Court staff rushed to help her while the courtroom filled with confusion. Once everything settled down, Gideon sat completely still. His lawyer suddenly changed his tone. "Your Honor, considering these new financial disclosures, we request a delay. My client would like to withdraw the divorce petition and attempt marriage counseling." Gideon turned toward me. "Mara, please. We don't have to get divorced. This was all a misunderstanding. We can fix this." I looked at him calmly. "There is nothing to fix, Gideon. You filed for divorce because you believed I had nothing. I accepted your decision." The judge raised his gavel. "Request denied." He explained that Gideon had already signed binding waivers giving up his claims to my separate property. Arthur's trust had legally protected the inheritance from the marriage. The truth finally hit Gideon. By trying to leave me with nothing, he had made sure he could claim nothing from my $28.7 million inheritance. I walked out of the courthouse into the morning sunlight. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. Gideon remained behind, arguing with his lawyer. The house he had fought so hard to keep came with a large mortgage and growing debts. Within 6 months, he was forced to move to a cheaper area and work long hours just to survive. As for me, I used Arthur's inheritance to build a peaceful life. I bought a beautiful home near the coast and created an educational foundation in my grandfather's name. Arthur had taught me an important lesson. Never let arrogant people know how strong you really are. Sometimes when someone digs a hole for you out of greed, the smartest thing you can do is simply step aside and let them fall into it themselves. Now I'd love to hear from you. Would you have revealed the inheritance earlier, or would you have waited until court like Mara did? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic stories.